in brightest day, in blackest night. No evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. Pretty cool, huh?
Hi, everybody. I'm Chad Bokelman,
I'm Mark Marble,
and this is the LanternCast.
episode 199.
Almost, not quite. So close.
Pretty damn close.
Yeah, pretty damn
Well,
close.
we've done work for episode 200, so it's
Yeah,
close.
we've put in the hours. We're not getting paid, but we're doing it anyways. So yeah, 200's coming up, but right now we've got Futures End as we record this. Just to give you guys some perspective, the final two issues of the Futures End Lantern tie-ins, so Red Lanterns and Sinestro, came out yesterday. So we are being as timely as possible here. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to start off. Mark is going to take Green Lantern, then I'm going to take New Guardians. He's taking Core, then I'm taking Red Lanterns. Haha, sucker. And then
Yeah, I know.
Mark.
How convenient. I knew that was gonna. I mean, you wanted it, so I certainly wasn't gonna. And I usually do Red Lantern, so I certainly wasn't gonna fight you for it.
Uh-huh.
So, but we kind of knew this one was going to be good, and then once I started flipping through it yesterday after I picked it up, I was like, Jesus, I mean, come on. Let's talk about a slam dunk. Which one's the best one of the five?
Well, you get Sinestro, which is I think
Sinestro
a
isn't
close
bad,
second.
but I think Red Lanterns is the creme de la creme of these five, certainly.
For sure. And we've got 5 issues to cover here, people, so we're not even going to bother. And none of these even really tie into Future's End at all, anyways. So we're just going to say, screw it. We're not going to give us... normally when there's like a tie-in or something to an event, we would try to give a brief summary of the event, what's been going on, if anything is any way relevant. But with 5 issues, screw it. We're just going in. We're going to treat these as one-shots. As they are, they're labeled one-shots, and then move on from there. So starting with Green Lantern.
Green Lantern, the Future's End tie-in. So as all these issues will begin the same way 5 years from now. So we have a older looking Hal Jordan who's again, but that shaved side of his head, he kind of has that parallax look to him. That he's having a interesting conversation with Krona, but it's not just Krona, people. It's Black Lantern Krona, who now has somehow become the proud possessor of Black Hand's Black Ring. So now he has raised his own Black Lantern Corps, and he is, as he's alluding to, after I've introduced you and your friend, who we don't know who it is yet, to the consequence of mortality, then I'll make you both generals in my Black Lantern Corps. Hal makes a little comment like I said, not good. And then, of course, we hear, why, little Lightsmith? And, of course, we have the opening splash page, and we see none other than Relic, who is no longer in the Source Wall. He has somehow freed himself. And no, we don't get an explanation for that. That's part of the great mystery of this. So Hal, and for the sake of the length of probably this episode anyway, I think Chad and I are both going to try to cut a few corners when it comes to the descriptions. But we have Hal pretty much convincing Relic that he needs his help, and that's the reason he's kind of led the Black Lanterns here, because Relic hasn't moved anywhere since he broke free from the Source Wall. He pretty much has been experimenting to try to understand more or less what has happened ever since he freed himself. So Hal led the Black Lanterns, as far as Hal was concerned, into a trap, hoping that Relic would see the danger of letting the Black Lanterns go, or the threat go unabated. And he kind of even makes a little comment about, come on, Relic, just admit you like having a wingman to share your favorite pastime with. So let's do it. Let's go kill some lanterns. Then we have a little flashback scene, which was slightly earlier, where Hal Jordan is drinking and his father comes to visit him. But of course, this is not just an image of his father, not just a spirit of his father. It's a Black Lantern version of his father, which is kind of referenced to, or the reference goes back to the Black Hand Villains Month one-shot when he raised Hal Jordan's father from the grave. Something, of course, we haven't seen anything come to fruition from it yet. But there's a direct reference to that. They mentioned the fact that Black Hand somehow disappeared, and the Black Ring came into the possession of Krona. Some other deceased lanterns pretty much have more or less tried to use Martin Jordan as a conduit to go reach out to Hal, since they figured if anybody could stop Krona, it could be Hal. Kind of interesting that they mentioned like Kahan is one of his old pals, which is kind of an interesting choice. We can talk about that later. We see that Martin Jordan, when he appears to Hal, he does, for the most part, he looks like Martin Jordan. He doesn't look like a zombie, and that's because he and some of the others, the Lanterns that Martin Jordan is essentially allied with, they have been fighting Krona, and they've been able to basically use their willpower to be able to maintain a semblance of a normal appearance, but Krona is still pulling at them, tugging them. So Hal pretty much says that he kind of has an idea how to deal with Krona. Krona's a mad scientist, so if you're gonna deal with a mad scientist, you pretty much should fight a mad scientist with one, and that brings us back to the if you will, the current moment when Hal and Relic are fighting side by side. Hal pretty much gives Relic the blueprint on how to defeat Black Lanterns, which is pretty much, you can't just use one color. So whatever other color you want, Relic, shoot out at me so I can use it with the green. So they started using he uses Sapphire Light, and Hal makes a comment which of course alludes to Carol about Sapphire and Violet and Green together again. Hal starts taking out a lot of the Black Lanterns. Krona's able to pretty much temporarily anyway, prevent Relic's instruments from responding. Somewhere in Relic's containment field on his backpack, it appears that the Lanterns that were helping Hal along with Hal's father were being contained or essentially protected. So Krona couldn't control them or use them, but Krona detects that they're there. He pulls them out of Relic's backpack, and he begins to more or less zombie-eyes them again to try to use against Hal Jordan. Hal pretty much realizes how desperate the situation is. He tells Relic, send your deflectors to me, charge them with everything you have. Relic insists or tries to encourage Hal to stick with the game plan, but Hal points out there's no time. Basically, at this point, Hal creates basically a ginormous green energy bubble to contain all the Black Lanterns. Relic's reflectors go off using the light of the emotional spectrum, and all the Black Lanterns that were contained are dead, including the Black Lantern, excluding Krona, whose ring goes off in search of Black Hand, who we find has basically been captured and contained. We assume, I guess, at this point, by Relic near the source wall. The few Black Lanterns that were not inside Hal's energy bubble now start to die because of the lack of basically the destruction of the connection with Krona and the Black Hand ring, and everything else pretty much helps turn them all into dust. The only ones that do not disappear are the Green Lanterns and Martin Jordan. Hal is mortally wounded. He's on the verge of dying. Martin convinces or does his best to convince Relic to try to save Hal. Relic, in a moment of actually some humility for him, acknowledges that medicine is really not his thing. He's really not an expert at that, but he has an idea. So since he was trapped in the source wall, he knows that pretty much you're not dead in the source wall. That his idea is to put Hal in the source wall, and he will continue to experiment, and maybe he will do. He basically will do his best to try to figure out a way to save Hal. So Martin Jordan carries Hal off. He puts him into the source wall, and we see Hal become part of the source wall, and that pretty much is the end of the Green Lantern one shot.
I enjoyed the art.
Yes, the art was good, and Martin Coccolo again did a good job drawing Hal.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, he did a good job drawing almost everyone. I thought he did a good job with the Relic.
Black Lantern.
Martin Jordan. I don't know about Martin Jordan. Kind of looked a little odd to me,
Mm-hmm.
but he did a good job with Krona.
Black Lanterns look awesome.
Yeah, as always, the Black Lanterns always look pretty good.
We're not going to delve into it. Normally we would, but I think it'd be cool for people who've read the issue. Why don't you write in and tell us what Black Lanterns you see here? I mean, Evil Star is fairly obvious, and so is Goldface. But
Because that's old school Evil Star though.
yeah, that is. So if you guys recognize any of these lanterns, just shoot us an email and let us know where they appear and next to whom, as far as location, because they're usually when you see the Black Lanterns, they're in a crowd. So tell us who they are, and that'd be some cool feedback to get. Um, I don't know why I never said it during Lights Out, but Relic's head looks like Togepi from Pokemon. Um, and another thing, like just to point out how much I like the art, if someone can make a PNG file for me, uh, of Hal Jordan here on this page, opposite the Kubert School ad, where he calls his ring to him, and he's surrounded by this green energy. Someone make a PNG file for me of that Hal Jordan right there, and email it to lanterncast@gmail.com. A high res version, but a PNG file of all cropped around him in this green energy. And right where Hal Jordan is saying "Dad," I don't know if it's possible to replace that word bubble with whatever the green energy should look like right there. But if you can, that'd be cool, because I'd like to use that for something in the near future. So that'd be awesome. So lanterncast@gmail.com if you can get a high res image of Hal here with a PNG crop all around him. But yeah, I really like the art in here.
And what did you think of the story?
The story was okay. I do like the personal. It's like they're listening to us. There's a lot of interaction with Hal and his dad on Earth.
That's true.
So that's cool. And I wonder if the interaction with Hal and his dad on Earth is because we talked about this before. There's no way that if we were to mark the calendars in 5 years from now, this is not going to happen, or even close to this is not going to happen. They're not going to go, well, it's the 5 year mark. We got to make sure we all hit these character beats right here. So I think it's cool that the creators were basically given, all right, 5 years from now, do whatever the hell they want. I wonder if Venditti and them want Hal on Earth and doing A, B, C, and D, but are restrained from doing it for editorial reasons or whatever. Because it kind of feels like if you could do anything you want, well, why is Hal on Earth? You know what I mean? Maybe they want him on Earth. So, but yeah, I thought it was okay. Relic was less of a douche, and I like the fact that they kept the whole Black Lanterns being killed by a mix of light. They didn't come up with some other BS thing, so that's cool.
One of the things I really liked about this was the fact that it wasn't more than some of the other issues. And as we go along and go through these, I'm sure we'll talk about this more. Well, this issue clearly does reference some of the things that they've done in the new creative team's run. It's not exclusively that. I mean, the whole Krona, Krona pretty much has nothing to do with the new creative team. They haven't done anything with him. The Black Lanterns, they really haven't, other than Black Hand, they really haven't done anything with. So, to me, for lack of a better way of describing it, because this is how I feel, certainly when we get to another one of these issues that I'm doing, that the storyline doesn't seem, to me, it doesn't seem as self-serving, like promoting their own ideas, and this is what we think. How important the ideas are, the stories that we're doing now, that they're going to impact the Green Lantern universe like in 5 years. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That this one I think flows better. I mean, yes, Relic is theirs, but it's a clever idea that Relic pulls himself out of the wall. We don't know how. He doesn't necessarily know how, but he wants to figure out how, and that's why he hasn't basically moved from that spot since he came free. Excuse me. It's a clever idea with Krona. That in a way that when you think about everything they've done with Krona so far and how we left him, it would make sense that in a way that if we do see Krona again, it would not be outrageous that we would see him as a Black Lantern. And especially if something happened to Black Hand, it would almost make sense that he would be based on his scheming and his plots and everything else, that he would be a good person to take over as leader of the Black Lantern Corps. So I did like that. I thought that was relatively clever, and I liked, again, they definitely make Relic out to be more likable in this issue. Though the whole thing of calling him Little Lightsmith gets old real quick.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, throw it in once. It kind of made sense, especially before you turn the page, because you don't entirely know who's going to be there. Even though with that reference point, you kind of have an idea, but you don't need him to repeat it like 3 or 4 times, or at least I think he says it at least 3 times in the book. It's like, come on, okay, we get it. We get it. The lanterns are smaller in our universe than yours. We get it.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked it, and the art was good, and I thought it was entertaining. But it also does follow a trend that there's only one book that kind of breaks that trend, which is that the endings of all these 4 of the 5 of these futures end issues are not positive for the main character.
Yeah. Well, the only other thing I wanted to say about this issue, if anybody finds a detriment at the end of the Lantern-related Black Lantern still being able to hang around, there is a precedence for that set in the DC universe. Not necessarily with Blackest Night, but two different instances, actually both involving Necron. When Necron first appeared in the Green Lantern Corps, Tales of the Green Lantern Corps annual, I believe, or was it just Tales of the Green Lantern Corps? One of the two. Either way, in the Tales of the Green Lantern Corps series, when Necron first showed up, when Hal crossed into the world of the dead and first encountered Necron, one of the ways he was able to defeat Necron and close that gap in the fabric of reality to keep Necron from getting out was that these souls of the Green Lanterns were able to help him, the ones that had already died. So they were, I think they were kind of, glowing green, and they rose up to help Hal defeat Necron. So as far as Green Lanterns in the afterlife having more power than your standard soul in the afterlife, that precedent was set. Another time this was set, again involving Necron, was in one of the Green Lantern annuals during Kyle Rayner's run. I can't remember the annual number, but it was when they were doing all the Ghosts annuals.
I remember that one.
Yeah, so and what had happened was a lot of Lanterns had come back, all zombified, and Necron was trying to cross over into our world again. And he raised, I believe Oa was it was Oa. Yeah, Oa was remade, and he was fighting a couple of Lanterns, zombified Lanterns. Well, one of the main Lanterns he was fighting was Kilowog. And after Necron's connection was, severed and his, little window into the fabric of reality into our universe was closing, once all that was done and everything was dissolving, Kilowog came back to his senses and was himself for a little bit before he, deteriorated again. So these if anybody has an issue with this group of Lanterns, dead Lanterns supposedly sticking around, it's not entirely implausible based on, past, dead Green Lantern storylines. So that's something I noticed, a parallel I drew with those two stories that I thought I'd mention here. I didn't really have an issue with it, but it did remind me of those two stories.
That was definitely a good catch there, and I'm sure people will appreciate that. You point, since there is, in case there was any, people thought it was a major discrepancy or.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything in Blackest Night. Maybe the only thing is we never really got a true resolution on the Brightest Day Black Lanterns, like where they came from and what was happening there. They made it seem like the Anti-Monitor was controlling them, but I don't think we ever got a true resolution with those things. Let's see. So, do you have anything else to say about Green Lantern?
I do not think so. I'm just flipping through real quick just to see if there's anything that. No, I do think we hit all the major beats on this one.
All right. So, Green Lantern New Guardians Futures End tie-in numero 1 shot. Again, 5 years later. This whole thing is being narrated by Kyle because it's all in the White Lantern bubbles. Basically, what is happening here is he has learned. I've learned by trial and error that my arrival must be sudden. No time for panic or fear or resistance. Just a flash of white and then the change. This is a world now at peace, a world without want or war, a better world. What happens is Kyle basically either I'm looking. Yeah, that is him. He shows up on a world, basically explodes his light in the atmosphere. It sweeps across the planet and basically fixes the planet in one quick go. Everybody's got the kind of arch of the White Lantern symbol on their head, kind of like a crown, and you can tell that it's affecting them. This one individual, actually it looks like a couple of individuals, aren't affected by the white light, and that's when everybody kind of gangs up and takes these people to physically show them the truth. That there's like chairs or something that looks like they kind of reintegrates them. Well, this one group is trying to reintegrate this individual woman. Her name is Soren, and they're trying to turn it on and get her going and on their side. And he says, as my power grew, I saw as Soren now sees. I saw the universe with terrors beyond comprehension. I saw teeming masses starving and fighting for survival in a universe of plenty. And I saw that half measures would help no one. I saw that I had the power to change them, and I did. So Kyle has become a god, as I told you he was gonna with this white power. And not only that, he has been using his power for these past, I'm assuming, all 5 years to effect change on all these other planets by force. Like, he doesn't ask, or he doesn't, go get down in the nitty gritty and learn the planet or figure out what needs help and help one by one. He just shows up and, like happens in the first page, explodes his light and changes the planet based on his whim. Soren is seeing all of this as well. This is part of the, getting them to understand process. And she says no several times. And
no means no.
Yeah. And she grabs one of the people by the throat and says, and just lets go and leaves. She gets confronted by them again. They try to grab her again. She gets away, hides, finds a ship and stows away on it. And she gets one of the crew members who's, I guess, taking inventory. She puts a knife to his throat. Says, "I don't want you to scream. I want you to help me." So she is on the ship and she's heading out into space, and a bubble says her name, and she's like, "Why don't you just kill me? I'm not going to be what you want me to be." He says, "It's time. Kill you. I do not wish to kill you or harm you at all. My name is Yekop. Please come in." So Yekop is he's still Scion-y, right? That's what that is.
It's a similar setup to being a Scion, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely integrated into this system. He definitely knew she was there. He is one with the ship, and says, "I'm looking after the well-being of all on board. You're not a threat to either myself or the well-being of the people on board." She says she has the mixture, enough of things to make a bomb, and he says, I believe you would detonate this. He says, you want me to give you control of the ship, or you will detonate the improvised explosive? Yes. She says, I will. He says, I believe you. I do not believe that device is capable of killing me, but the connection with the rest of me, yes, perhaps. That is an unacceptable risk. So what is it you desire? So she is brought to Kyle's shard. For those of you missing the Green Lantern animated series, basically it's a good-looking shard. It's a piece of, I don't know, a planet or an asteroid or something. It's a city floating in space, and she's brought to this floating fortress of Kyle's, and it is brought inside, and suddenly we see Gotham. this stupid Gotham 2-page ad is driving me insane. She comes up onto a kind of an art gallery. It looks like there's murals of the lanterns there, and then there's a statue of a skeleton holding a shield and a spear. And the bubbles is the narrator saying, "I have sacrificed everything I had. I have sacrificed everything I had for what I believed was right. My friends, my humanity, and even my love, Carol." And that particular bubble's shown up as Saysoren is stroking the skull of this skeleton. So I'm assuming this is Carol.
It is. It's supposed to be.
And it says this is Saysoren says, "This isn't love, not anymore." And Kyle says, "You may be right." That's when she grabs the spear, and this is the what were their names? The God Killers.
Yes.
This is the weapons of the God Killers. She says, "No, you don't get to say you love someone and then kill them." And that's when Kyle shows up and says, "I did this because I love you all." And she says, "Well, you did it because you're insane." He says, "Well, that might be true, and that's the problem." And at this point, it's kind of necessary to read a little bit, in between here. They fight each other. She throws energy at him, which he obviously easily deflects. He says, "I feel righteous and vindicated." And he says, "I made this to remember Carol and the Guardian." He says, "Carol and the Guardians thought that the life equation was too much, that my mind was cracking under the power of it. I could not change them, and they would not stop." Saysoren says, "You can change people, you can change worlds, you can change the universe, but you couldn't change me. You couldn't make me what you wanted. I'm not alone, and I'm not stopping." He said, "Billions, there are billions like you, people of every kind imaginable, blessed with the will or the compassion or the rage to allow them to resist. But when I show them the truth, all see." And he, fires back at her, and it looks like he's negating her spear for a second. She strikes him. She says, "You don't get to decide." He says, "Someone has to," and she says, "You're wrong." She says, "Everyone has to. No one person can make everyone happy. You can force us to be what you believe is best, but I'll fight. We will fight." And she says, "Without weapons, without hope." She says, "All I have is hope." He said, "Yeah, me too." And that's when you're revealed. He says, "This is why I brought you here, why I tested you, because I can't see outside myself. I can't judge what I've done. I'm at the end of my days. I'm becoming one with the source. And I give this gift to you. To undo what I have done, you can judge my work. You can judge my work. You can judge me. I will not force you. Cannot. Only you can decide. Only you." And he disappears in a blaze of light, and only the ring is left, and Saysoren puts it on her finger. And that is that.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah. I think it's kind of reminiscent of the Power of Ion stuff. For the first time he was Ion, only there is no giving the energy back.
And then he's had the power for a lot longer.
Yeah,
And the again, going back to that storyline, the hint that it's not so much that not that it's a slam dunk that he's going to do bad things with it, but it's a question of whether any one person should have that much power.
Yeah.
And what it might possibly do to you.
Yeah, that's something that was explored more in depth because there were several issues of it in that Power of Ion story. But the same kind of themes in there, like you just said. Whether one person should have all the power. Kyle was kind of, in his omnipotence, was losing focus of whether was so focused on believing what he was doing was right, and even though it was, he didn't stop to think if he should. That's the same kind of thing that's happening here. But in that story, he gave the power back to restart the central power battery and bring back the Guardians. Well, there is no giving back this power that he has. So I think it's this, it's 2 issues in, and I'm already drawing parallels with older stories. But I think I enjoy this issue for that reason. It's not one of my favorite Futures End titles. I thought we would see more Kyle. I thought there'd be more here that would be awesome with Kyle as a White Lantern, but given its ties with something I really enjoy, I like it. I like it better than some people on the online have.
I think I like the fact that, as opposed to almost all the other Futures End tie-ins instead of considering the pattern we've seen throughout the run of the new creative teams. This issue does not necessarily. Not only does it not run away from the ending that Jeff Johns showed us, it kind of almost like embraces it and just takes it to the next final step. You kind of see Kyle looking like he did in that issue. You kind of see Kyle almost at that, maybe slightly beyond the point where we saw him in that epilogue where everything seemed more, all hunky-dory. And now it's kind of like maybe, Kyle taking it to the next step, which isn't so clear-cut about the ends justifying the means. But it does certainly more directly, connecting the dots. You could definitely see getting to this point from where Johns left it. So I kind of like the fact that instead of like throwing dirt on that there is kind of a reference point to that. I like the fact that in his little chamber before Carol's body is with the spear and everything, you see, like you mentioned, you see pretty much the Guardians, and it looks like it's Ganthet behind Carol.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it looks like based on the robe, based on the fact that it's a red robe. That I like that. I'm being consistent, so I hated the part about how Carol was supposedly his love. I hated that part.
Yeah. I did like that she at some point I either lost her Star Sapphire ring or Kyle took it from her or something. But the God Killer, she took up arms to fight him.
That essentially, no matter how she got there, the whole point was at some point her Sapphire ring wasn't really either was gone or was ineffective anymore, so she had to try something else. Along with the new Guardians that were trying to stop Kyle. And there kind of is a book, and like you mentioned, there in a way there is a bookend with the Ion storyline, because technically Kyle he has two choices. He could not give he could just become one with the Source and just essentially take the power with him. But so he does kind of give the power back, just not in the same way that he gave it back with reigniting the central power battery. He basically chooses to pass on the white ring to someone else, as opposed to just more or less taking the power with him. And so that was kind of a nice touch. The art was pretty good for the most part. I really like the cover though. If you look at the actual, not the like Venom looking Kyle, the actual Kyle, the traditional white Lantern Kyle on the cover.
Oh, I didn't get the 3D covers.
Oh, you didn't get the 3D cover? Well, that's like the best Kyle has looked as a White Lantern since he became one. It's a really nice picture.
Yeah, but I wasn't gonna buy into that bullshit.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, those are the ones I have. So, but yeah, he looks more like White Lantern Venom on the negative part of the hologram. Or the holograph. But so it was pretty good. It was I like you said, a lot of people were down on this issue. I had heard a lot of things about the issue before I read it, because that's the one that came out last week, right?
I think so.
Yeah, because I didn't get it till Wednesday when I picked up the ones that came out this week, so I was behind on that one. It was okay. I agree. It was not one of the better ones, which is a fine line now, because there's only 5, so there's not going to be many that are going to be some of the good ones at this rate. But yeah, it was okay.
All right. Green Lantern Corps.
Green Lantern Corps. So 5 years from now, we have a couple of Green Lanterns flying in a spaceship. I don't think it's a sector house. I think it's just a ship. We get a great reference to the Shadow Empire, which of course we have yet to see in Green Lantern, but we know it's coming. And it's even better to know that 5 years from now, the Shadow Empire is still around and giving the Green Lantern Corps trouble. Why not just make it Durlan's and make it easier? That'd have been, I think that would have been a great inside joke, just to make it Durlan's, just because people would have gone, "Oh, you got to be kidding me." They hinted Uprising 2, the skirmish. So these two Green Lanterns are talking about the Shadow Empire and how difficult it's been, and how many ring bearers, ring slingers that we've lost, and all of a sudden they they send something coming at them, and pretty much, the orders are crystal clear. Anything comes within sight of home, we take it down, and we find out that the light that's coming at them is none other than Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart pretty much they try to attack Jon Stewart. He pretty much dismantles their ship. Most people, everybody's pretty much petrified of Jon Stewart at this point. And they're begging Jon Stewart, please don't kill us. And he goes, well, I'm not going to kill you because, the Corps needs you because someone has to be cannon fodder. We find out that, after Jon leaves these two to fly down to Mogo, we find out that, these two Lanterns continue to talk amongst themselves. And they go, he's racked up more kills than anyone in the Corps. He took out another Lantern with his bare hands. And he got off without even being convicted, and he even destroyed Mogo, all with a single bullet. Everywhere he goes, he leaves a trail of bodies. Jon approaches Kilowog and Salak, who are pretty surprised to see him. They didn't really think they were going to see him again. Jon says, some of these new recruits, it's like, what makes me wonder why we even bothered rebuilding the Foundry. Now we find out a little twist in this, which is that apparently Oa has been recreated, because the Corps is planning to recapture or reclaim Oa for the Corps, even though they don't really need it. It's more of a symbolic move. Jon's kind of pointing out they really don't need it. Nobody really, we doesn't really matter, about only the Guardians cared about essentially being the center of the universe, and those graves are long cold. Kilowog reveals that basically they sent 2 members undercover to try to help pave the way or soften the landing, for lack of a better way of describing it, for the Green Lantern Corps to take back Oa, and that's Von Daggle and his partner Raimi. Jon's a little surprised that Van Daggle's alive, but he's more, not so much, let me take that back. He's not surprised Van Daggle is alive, really. He's more surprised that an old friend of theirs had intercepted Van Daggle, and we will find out who that is. The Quiet One, as they refer to him as at this point. Jon pretty much makes the point of, his new basic philosophy, which is, I warned you that weakness would lead to this. You don't lock away a criminal, you kill him. And, Jon just says, you know what? At the end of the day, pretty much one shot to the brain, it's humane. And Salak, they were pretty desperate at this point. They go, we can abide to your terms. We can definitely, that works for us. Jon says he needs a new spotter because he basically lost his partner. We see Jaruk and Fesca, who are having lunch at the mess hall. That's when Jon shows up, and pretty much Jaruk thinks that basically maybe he's looking for him to go as a spotter, but Jon makes it clear he doesn't really need brute force this time, and he wants Fesca to be a spotter. Now we cut to Oa, Space Sector 0, which has now been basically under the control of the Shadow Empire. We see Raimi and Van Daggle that are about to be sacrificed. Jon and Fesca are in space. Jon is pretty much using his, not even a sniper gun, it's more like a machine gun. He's taking aim on, from space, aiming onto Oa. Then he pretty much takes out almost all of the beasts of the creatures that were surrounding Van Daggle and Raimi. Van Daggle and Raimi pretty much are freed at this point from, they get freed by Fesca and Jon. This is when Jon arrives, and Jon makes it clear to Fesca that basically her role in this is over. That he only came, that pretty much he wants her to take Van Daggle and Raimi out of there. That Jon's going to handle this on his own. This is when we find out that the Quiet One is Marrow, who we had seen before, one of the new recruits. Marrow, who his people basically, they were known for their oratory skills, and of course he couldn't speak. And somehow the concept of him not being able to speak, and the fact that the Shadow Empire pretty much offered him the ability to speak, that helped lead him to essentially turn on the Green Lantern Corps. So Marrow's trying to climb away. Jon's pretty much focusing in on aiming on his gun at him. He's about to finish him off, and it's at that moment when his essentially his assassination attempt of Marrow was interrupted by the arrival of Indigo One with a resounding knock. Jon pretty much says that it's not surprising that you hear the Indigo tribe. I'm not really surprised. I shouldn't be considering what you are, that you'd be involved with the Shadow Empire, not after what you did to the rest of us. Indigo One makes it clear she pretty much has no allegiance in this war. She has no dog in the fight. She just came here to induct a new member into the tribe. Maro pretty much is saying, no, don't take me, don't make me a mindless, one of your mindless herd. John just confronts her and says, induct, you just track down sociopaths and brainwash them. You're just a pack of criminals. She tries to a certain extent, reason with John, because mentioning that, you used to be, you wore a ring at one point. So you know a little bit about compassion. And she brings something out which is kind of interesting, which is, she says to John, don't you think the green ring influences you? Don't you think, it's kind of like, are you naive to think that just because, it's a different color, don't you think that it kind of influences you or controls you the same way? I mean, the ring picks you, so you really don't have a choice in the matter, do you? John gets pretty indignant at that point. You know nothing about this ring. She points out, you are mistaken. She goes, I have found someone who has fallen too far, a heart that is darkened, but the ember yet glows. So she kind of surrounds him with green energy constructs. At this point, Maro tries to head for the hills. Indigo One confronts him. It's like, how could you abandon your fellow Lanterns? Have you no compassion? And this is when you get Maro's little, I guess, his pseudo explanation for why he turned traitor. Compassion, that is why I left the Corps. The Empire took me in. They allowed me to speak. They wanted to hear me. No one else ever did. Pretty much we find out Maro was setting her up for the kill, because more of the creatures that were about to kill Van Dagel, the ones that weren't killed by John, now have surrounded Indigo One. John is free at this point. He takes his gun. He goes, I'll give you this, Maro. You don't give up easy. Kind of a recurring theme in almost all of these issues. They mention hope a whole lot. She points out, you have no hope, Lantern, and I find myself in need of a replacement sacrifice. Maro sends the beasts after John. Indigo One makes a comment about, so much pain, so much regret you carry. She touches John. Big surprise. She takes him to the remains of Xanshi. Then she takes him to Zezin, where, of course, his relationship with Fatality went completely south. Or he learned, that the person he thought was Fatality wasn't, before finding out, meeting the real Fatality again and knowing pretty much that that love was gone, or was never really there to begin with. They continue their back and forth, but then John points out that, my mission is to kill, and he charges, and he ends up stabbing Indigo One in the gut, mortally wounding her. John starts saying, and I didn't want to. They get transformed. I mean, Indigo One and John end up back on Nock. Nostromo and the rest, including Monk is still around, and the Indigo tribe is there, and we find out at this point that Indigo One showed up on Oa not for Maro, but for John. That she was looking for John all along. That was the new recruit that she wanted. And the reason why she wanted a new recruit was because her time was at an end, and essentially the Indigo tribe, based on how desperate in the universe was, how there was a lack of compassion overall in the universe, they needed a new leader, a different type of leader, more of a warrior. And at that point, as she's dying, John feels compassion. The ring flies off Indigo One's finger, goes on to John. As soon as that happens, John's green ring disappears. He is now in complete Indigo tribe garb, and we get a little knock, and that is the end. Still awake there, Chad, I hope. I heard a yawn.
Nah. Doing my nails. This. I mean, we'll get to it when we do one of the feedback things with John, and I'll touch back to it. But just the way people approach John Stewart bothers me.
That pretty much sums it up right there. It's like,
yeah.
I didn't like. Of all the 5 of these, this is the one I disliked the most.
Yeah, not a big fan. Plus, Nat Romo's here. These are
Nostromo's everywhere, as we find out.
Yeah, this is supposed to be 5 years from now, but he's in 2 different places in 2 totally different situations at once. Which
this is true, though. I guess I suppose we don't know when we get to the other issue that he's. Oh, jeez. That when we get to the other issue that he's in, we don't necessarily know, like.
No, it says in there that he's been without a name for a long time.
Yeah, that's true. It does. That's true. It does say that.
Yeah. So a little.
Yeah, because I was gonna try to give some kind of outs that maybe that one happened sometime after this one. But you're
This is the bullshit I'm talking about, DC. Talk to each other. Jesus Christ. Just talk. I mean, how hard is it? Hey, I'm going to be using Naturome over here. No, actually, I had a plan to use them over here. Well, what are we going to do? Eh, fuck it. I'm sure the readers won't care. Really? We won't notice at all.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You can't possibly notice it. It's like, and as well, I might as well just say it now. And what's with the creative decision to have Nostromo 2, Saint Walker 0 as an appearances in these friggin' 5 issues? I mean, come on. But this is my. I'm not a fan of bitter, angry John Stewart.
Mm-mm.
I don't need to see that. Yeah, they didn't deal with Zanshi much, but we don't need to see Zanshi again. I mean, they referenced the Mogo thing too. At least, I mean, I guess they couldn't really take him to Mogo truly, unless you're going back in the past, because Mogo has been rebuilt. So I hated that. I don't like the whole Morrow thing. Is kind of stupid as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And even worse, this, and to me, this was the most self-serving of the 5, I think. Because yes, they reference some things that happened previously, like the Zanshi stuff. But so much of this is all that happened in the creative team, and again, the whole idea, because even though we know these stories are all basically bullshit Elseworld stuff that are never going to come to fruition, or they're creating this on purpose just so at some point they're going to hint or tease us that some of these things might happen just to take it in the opposite direction. But the idea that we really want to see a storyline about this Shadow Empire, which we know nothing about, that we know is going to last 5 friggin' years in comic book time. Really, we want to see a 5-year war between the Shadow Empire and the Green Lantern Corps. No. I liked it. I liked Indigo 1 showing up. I liked, we got a whole lot of Indigos considering in these storylines. A reference to, again, like we mentioned, the Tromo. I kind of like that. The only thing I really liked about this issue was, and it's more a philosophic point than what was in the story, the idea that Indigo 1, who was obviously, we know she's been a very good leader for the Indigo tribe, but there comes a point when some leaders are perfect for one situation, but then a new situation develops and you need a different kind of leader. And that the Indigo tribe was now in the universe, essentially, was at that point now where they really needed a stronger, more of a warrior, more of a militant kind of leader. Someone who felt compassion too, but someone who was basically was a different type of leader to take based on the situation they found themselves in. And John ended up being that leader. So I kind of liked the general concept of different leaders for different times. But other than that, I didn't like this issue at all. And this was, I mean, the art was pretty good in most spots for me. But other than that, I can't really say much good about this one.
Yeah, I already put it down.
Chad already burned it.
Yeah, I'm done. So that's not being lazy. I just, even though I've not adopted this practice before, I'm adopting it for this particular issue, just for this one night only. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything nice. Don't say anything at all. So I've already put it down.
So with respect to that point, Chad's going to now give us 5 minutes of silence.
Yeah. Red lanterns. Yeah.
You bastard.
Awesome. So we open up 5 years later, after the
It's a Fidian.
Sector 405, the planet Gar. We see a snake Red Lantern, blood coming from his mouth, saying 3 down, 3 million to go, over and over and over again. It's at this point we see Bleeze, and she says, "Yeah, we get it. Don't waste your time trying to fight us. It's hopeless." And she blocks, with her little bone wings, his spewing venom, and that's when we see, well, I don't know if I'd go that far, Bleeze. And we see Blue Lantern Guy Gardner. He grabs the snake. Yeah. Sorry.
Won't be the only time in this issue the snake gets grabbed.
He grabs the snake. and kind of calms him down and says, "Yeah, I got him. He's not too far gone." And the ring comes off of him and goes actually the red ring comes off of the snake, goes to Bleeze, and Bleeze puts it on her bone wings and kind of, I don't know, loses it, I guess. I'm guessing every time you add a red ring to yourself, you still get the uh, intense,
Surge.
yeah, the
Yeah.
surge of the intensity, and this happens every time. She's taking on more and more rings. Well, it turns out that their goal is to rid the universe of red lanterns. And they're working in tandem to do that. And the only way to heal someone of the red lantern energy is a blue lantern. So that's what's happening here. Guy is working with Bleeze. Bleeze is taking on all the rings, and that's what they're doing. Well, they head back to Ysmalt with this snake in tow, because he is in despair because he says, I didn't mean it. I was so angry. Are you going to kill me? I deserve that. I do. I can still taste them. And says, we're not going to kill you. All of us here were like you. Until Guy and Bleeze save us. There's life if you want it. But if it gets to be too much, you can go into the lake. Some people pick that way. And that's the Blood Lake. Ysmalt is actually flourishing, it looks like. There's plant life. There's a city. There's plant life all around, even the central power battery. It's a whole thing. There's mountains and stars, and it actually looks pretty pleasant on Ysmalt, right here. So Guy and Bleeze are kind of camping out, and he says, they have a little aside here, which I'm gonna read because I think it's funny. Guy talks and says, "You think the snake guy will be all right?" Bleeze says, "I don't know. They don't usually eat the targets of their revenge." He says, "Yeah, tough pill to swallow." She says, "Hard to get that down." He says, "Probably left a bad taste in his mouth." Bleeze says, "Good one." So they're talking to each other, and he says, they're talking about someone. They don't say who yet, but they say him a lot. Do you think he'll end up down there? No, he's too far gone. He wasn't always. Guy is, kind of stoking the fire. She says, "Do you want to?" And he says, "Huh?"
Literally stoking the fire.
Yes, yes. Guy says, "Didn't we try a few times? Can't remember it ever working out so well." She says, "I know, but there's every chance we'll both die tomorrow." He says, "Good point." She says, "You know we'll both be thinking of other people," and there's ellipses. And he says, "I can live with that." And clearly this is Guy and Bleeze going to do the nasty.
Yeah, because she says, "Do you want to?"
Yeah. Space Sector 666, the Palace of Red King Jack. If this is supposed to be a representation of some sort of UK landmark, I don't know what it is. So I won't even pretend to know what I'm talking about there. So if anybody out there is Andy, I know you're out there. Tell me what this is. There's a British flag over it, so I'm assuming it's somewhere in the UK, unless it's just meant to look like something completely. Never mind. Anyways, so these aliens approach this the king and says, they took everything from us. We beg you, grant us your boon. He says, "Well, what would that be?" Well, it said that we come and we're supposed to come to you and you would give us justice. He says, "I think you came to the wrong place." And we reveal this Rancor sitting on a throne, and he's wearing chainmail, like a chainmail short sleeve T-shirt made of Red Lantern rings, and he's got a construct crown and a construct scepter. Which I always thought scepters were cool. Just as a little aside, I want to.
The splash page is just great. I mean,
Yeah.
you just look at the art, it's like, oh, it's just really, really good.
Yeah.
And that chainmail thing made of the Red Lantern rings is pretty damn awesome.
Yeah. He says, "Doesn't mean you blokes are out of luck, though. The ones who wronged you will be destroyed along with everything they have ever built. I will scorch the earth where they walked. I will burn their homes, and their lives will be brought to ruin. It will be as if they never were." Good speech. Yeah, I say it every time. He says, "No, that's not what we want. We want justice." He says, "Well, that's too damn bad." And he sends out this red construct pterodactyl thing. He says, "I'm more about revenge." Pterodactyl dragon thing. Then we see a blue shard of glass or something. No, yeah, it is. It's a shard of glass, but it turns into a sword.
Sword.
Yeah. Stabs the dragon. Bleed says he sent out a construct independently. It's not tied to his ring. How powerful is he? And Guy says it's too powerful, but that's the whole point. You're powerful too, Bleeze. We've been collecting red rings for years for this fight. There aren't any more to get. He's got the rest. This is as strong as we'll ever get. And earlier in the issue, I didn't mention it, but Bleeze had asked him how, as a Blue Lantern, he's able to be offensive, create constructs and everything. Well, he finally tells her, and he reaches under his collar, and he pulls out this string, and he's got a yellow ring, star sapphire ring, an indigo ring, a green ring, a red ring, all on his necklace. So he says, I've tried them all, Bleeze. Will, fear, compassion, anger, even love. That was a weird couple of months.
That's great. Thong Guy Gardner returns.
But the one that made it all work, the one that ran through all the others, was hope. So this is when the Red King Jack, aka Rancor, shows up to starts screaming about them killing his dragon. He creates a red construct firing squad, and they fight. Him and Bleeze start going up against one another. This allows Guy some time to slip behind Rancor. He's like, don't try and talk me out of it. I got nothing against you. You got revenge, and things went back into balance for a while until she mucked everything up. She has to die for what she did. He says, I've got one thing to tell you about 20 words, and then whatever happens, happens. And then, I don't have a digital version, so I don't know if you can actually see what he says here without zooming in, but I can't read it in my physical copy.
I don't think you're really supposed to. Besides, there's only a couple of words you can see, and we find out that more or less it's essentially like 20 words.
Yeah. Bleeze freaks out. What are you doing? Just kill him. Did you see this stunned look on Rancor's face? And then Guy, with a wave of his hand, takes every Red Lantern ring off of Rancor, including the one he's wearing. Deteriorates the thing. Bleeze gets all of the rings on her. This is an incredible rush for her. She says, get out of the way, no more reds, you promised me, but don't you want to know how I got the rings off Rancor? He says, no, I want him dead. He goes, just let me tell you, he says, when you first put on the blue ring, you get a vision of your future. It's what gives you the hope you need to get through all the ugly stuff the universe throws at you. When I had that vision, there were no more reds. You and Rancor were both there, and you were happy. I don't know how, but you'll find a way. No one has to die. No one. And Bleeze's face softens. She's overcome with blue light. Guy takes every single Red Lantern ring in existence, evidently, and evaporates them all. Like, we're not talking, dispatches them to somewhere and hides them, but they all literally disintegrate. He says, no more reds, and then Bleeze is herself again, including no bone wings. We're talking actual feathered wings and everything, hugging Rancor. Says, is that truly the end, Guy? Is it over forever? He says, I don't know, Bleeze, but we can hope. And there's a cool shot of Guy as a Blue Lantern. And if anybody can make a PNG file of Guy as a Blue Lantern right here on this page, that'd be cool. But no, seriously, good issue. You think, okay, so he has the necklace. The Red Lantern ring he has on his necklace, do you think he still has that?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought too.
Because there's not. Even when you were talking, I was double checking the image to see if there was anything with that blue swirling energy that would kind of give you the impression that maybe the one on his necklace was coming off, but I see no. So technically, they would be correct that there were no more reds because nobody's wearing or channeling a red ring.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, he is correct in what and their goal has been achieved. But yes, but there clearly still is at least one Red Lantern ring, the one Guy has around his neck.
Right. Now, before we get too far lost in it, If anybody complains about Bleeze suddenly going from the bone wings to her feathered wings, don't forget red lanterns, or not red lanterns, blue lanterns also physically can heal you. So don't forget that. Because people probably, because I think she had bone wings before.
Because she was tortured.
Right. Yeah. So she had her rings were bones before she got the ring. So don't forget, blue lanterns can also physically heal you. So just wanted to throw that out there. But this is fantastic.
Excuse me. Yes, this was definitely the best. This was clearly the best of the five. It was, and it was. I mean, all these stories pretty much. They begin in media res, that it's not only just 5 years down the road, but it's in the middle of a story. It's not like the beginning. But this one you kind of know. There are some questions that come up about how this happened, how we got to this point. But for the most part, this issue, those questions really aren't as prevalent as they are in some of the other Lights Out issues. How we got to this point.
New Futures in.
Oh, yes, I apologize. Yes, Futures End.
Sorry.
That it's pretty straightforward. Where they are, what their goal is, how they got to this point, and the resolution is really good. Kind of the explanation for how Guy is a blue. I mean, I like that. He was a pretty good blue too.
Mm-hmm.
I was disappointed Saint Walker wasn't in this issue. You would think this would be the natural one for him to be in, if he was going to be in any of them. I liked the art. The Rancor thing you could kind of see coming a mile away, though. As far as when I was first reading it and they were just talking about him, I assumed he and Bleeze were going to essentially be the last two Reds left. So I liked it, though. It clearly was to me was the best of the five, and it just makes the fact that Sewell's leaving even worse.
Yeah. I mean, I really have nothing else to say about it. But in a good way. Like I just thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yep, this one was a winner, and I think we kind of knew it was going to be a winner even from the solicits. And this one definitely did not disappoint. I think this is clearly a very, very enjoyable issue, even as a one shot, even as a storyline that. And of all the storylines that in these Futures End that we know we're never going to pretty much see, this is probably one that we wouldn't, maybe the only one of the five that we wouldn't mind seeing come to pass.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah. It was really enjoyable though.
Oh yes.
For sure. So Sinestro?
Sinestro. 5 years later, there's a surprise. In Tartaros, the Ultramax Penitentiary. You find the worst sentients in the universe are imprisoned there. There are no names, or individuality. And there we see Sinestro. And we also notice pretty early on that Sinestro is missing his ring finger. That the ring finger on his left hand has pretty much been cut off in the middle. Sinestro, as the narrator, points out that once I might have dreamed of being the warden to such a place like this. Probably maybe. Or in such a place like this. Or I might... That was me adding. Obviously, it's written to a place like this. I'm just looking at it. But Sinestro says those days have passed, only the scars remain, and that's when you see him kind of like cradling his damaged ring hand. They have 36-hour work days. Every fourth cycle, he gets to work in the factory, which is what he likes, because he has a master plan, if you will. And who do we see working in the factory with him or approaching him? It's a much old. Well, actually, Nostromo looks old no matter any time we see him, but seeing him in civvies just doesn't look right. And it's interesting that the tattoos are permanent on him. So maybe because he's not bound to a ring or anything. So maybe that's the difference between just a tribe's member who loses their ring. That he basically comes up with he takes a few pieces to give to Nostromo, and he goes, "I believe I'm almost finished here." Nostromo makes some comment about, this will do nicely. Like, don't hold me to it. I'm not sure. but we may have enough. Sinestro comments, enough indeed. Sinestro, with his narration, also, refers to Nostromo. He goes, this inmate, like myself, was once a lantern, and like every other prisoner, he once had a name that was taken from him. Nostromo, the keeper of the indigo light. So much for his compassion now. A bunch of new arrivals show up at the prison, and we find out that more or less that the Apex League, a roving band of universal marshals, that they were the ones who apprehended Sinestro. They were tasked with using extreme force to apprehend fugitives, and they were the ones who captured Sinestro and burned his finger, the ring from his finger. And Sinestro comments, fear is the counter engine that would save the universe. That is the prophecy I was given and the truth I held dear. But in saving the universe, in turning back the tide of the paling, I branded myself a wanted man, a martyred man. And we find out that this group, the Apex League, basically came looking for Sinestro based on whatever he did to defeat the paling. So they arrived on New Korogor to engage the Sinestro Corps. The Sinestro Corps members were pretty much were dying left and right. We find out that at this point, Sora, at some point, Sornik crossed over to become a Sinestro Corps member. And she appeals to Sinestro as like, you know what has to be done. The Parallax Pit, open it. He goes, I cannot. I bound Parallax to New Korogor's core. You remember why this was done, don't you? If I free the entity. And she goes, well, we could find a new planet. So they clearly imply that somehow Sinestro, when he bound Parallax to the center of this planet, that if Parallax was ever removed, essentially the planet would die. Sinestro comments that, I'll lead the assailants away because pretty much they're just looking for me anyway. All they want is me. He and Lyssa Drac basically go off to they fly off from New Korogor. Lyssa is kind of surprised that that Sinestro wants her to follow him, and she asks him like, why do you want me to go with you instead of your own daughter? And he goes, we each have a role to play, Lyssa. You and I have different paths to walk. Yours leads into blackness, and mine brought me here. Now we switch. That was a flashback, essentially. Now we switch back to the prison, and now Lyssa Drac appears to Sinestro. They have their conversation. He goes, Lyssa says, what you asked of me, what you sent me away, it was difficult, but also implying that she was able to achieve it. I have done what you asked. I have found the weapon you desire. For me, the story has ended, but it's up to you to finish the tale. We find out that Nostromo, basically what he and Sinestro have been working on was a way to a device to essentially be able to tap into fear once more. Basically use, if not truly a power ring, but on some basic level to at least temporarily channel yellow energy again. And Sinestro uses it, and basically there's a mini uprising or rebellion. Sorry for using that term, uprising. You should be shot. A mini rebellion of the prisoners. Sinestro, Nostromo, a few other of the convicts take one of the spaceships from the penitentiary, and they take off. Sinestro even has to keep some of the other prisoners at bay who want to go with him, but there's barely any room. Nostromo is essentially piloting the ship, and he asks Sinestro, are you sure this is where you want to go? Because that's empty space. And Sinestro points out, I'm certain nothing is so empty as it appears. Sinestro leaves the ship, even though Nostromo kind of points out that the quote-unquote ring device wasn't really designed for life support. There we see a very zombified looking Lyssa Drac. He goes, Lyssa. She responds, no, not anymore. This is but a shadow of the creature you knew, fulfilling a final obligation to you. At that point, pretty much, the essence of Lyssa Drac fades away, and we basically get her skeleton at this point and her skull, which Sinestro keeps. Sinestro kind of makes an interesting comment about how many times have I courted rebirth? How often have I raised my core from ruin and ash? The answer is simple. As often as I deem necessary. When Sinestro gets back into the ship, all the fake ring's energies are gone, and he's helpless. In many ways now, he's the weakest of the pack. But by the time they land at their destination, which is New Korogor, they're all gone. Everybody else is dead but Sinestro. Sinestro is the last one left, and he's still almost like a last Poyuric moment because he's still holding Lyssa Drak's skull. Sinestro comments, this planet was once called Necropolis, and I claimed it as New Korogor. Now it would seem the original name is more appropriate. The Parallax Pit, cold and empty, and the Korogorian, the Yellow Lanterns, my daughter, dead. The Apex League shows back up again, preparing to confront Sinestro. That they try to blame everything that happened, the death of everyone on New Korogor and his own army. They try to blame that on Sinestro because, you know how that monster you trapped at the planet's core broke free. It was so angry and hungry, and it stripped your soldiers of their power, and you're to blame for this. And Sinestro points out accurately that basically you're the one who was really to blame for this because you weakened. In your zeal to capture me, you weakened us. You weakened our hold on the entity, and without me, they were unable to control it. But Sinestro actually takes responsibility and says, despite that, it is still my fault. He smashes Lyssa Drak's skull, and we find in the middle of Lyssa Drak's skull a Black Lantern ring. A Black Lantern ring comes to Sinestro. Yellow energy, green, black, all can be bent to my desire. All can be used to spread fear. But only one can build my army once more. Only one will help me reclaim my name. Only one shall be known from this day forward as the color of the new Sinestro Corps. And we see Black Lantern Sinestro leading basically his Black Lantern Sinestro Corps, including Sora, including Arkillo, and Lyssa, and pretty much almost everybody else who ever was a Yellow Lantern now is a Black Lantern, and Sinestro is leading them into battle. And that ends the Sinestro one-shot.
So which came first, Krona having the Black Lantern ring or Sinestro?
Well, the interesting thing here, let's see, at least with this one, they leave it open. They leave it open for one could come before the other, like you said. The question is how. But, of course, assuming that Lyssa has Black Hand's ring as opposed to just a Black Lantern ring, which would make sense to assume that, since it seemingly is Black Hand's ring, which is capable of creating a core or resurrecting a core. I don't know. It is kind of an interesting choice for two different books of these five to bring back the Black Lanterns.
Yeah. So yeah, Black Lanterns, Black Hand's ring, Natromo. I mean, come on. But otherwise, good story. You know what I really like, and I didn't realize it till now, is that last page with Sinestro and his core coming at you. That's reminiscent of a few different covers we've had, like
Yep.
That were all turned into posters. Sinestro for Sinestro Corps when that was happening, Green Lantern with Hal in the center. I think Atrocitus with his Red Lanterns. There was that one for Green Lantern Corps a long time ago that had Guy, John, Kyle, and Kilowog coming towards you with the rest of the Corps.
Yeah, they did a lot. They did a lot of covers like that, most of which were during the Sinestro Corps War.
Mm-hmm.
And then they did the variation on the theme when they did Red Lanterns #1, because I have the T-shirt of that too. The Atrocitus doing the same thing, leading the Red Lanterns in the same pose.
Yeah, I'd like to have a high-res image of this without the narration boxes. That would be cool. And if anybody wants to PNG Sinestro Black Lantern, that'd be cool too. The more base, I'm trying to do some cool stuff with album art for our individual episodes, and the more Lantern-related cool PNG files I have, the better. So I think from now on, as we read issues, I might randomly ask the audience if anybody has the ability to PNG files to get a digital version of this. Of the image and high res large image and PNG crop the whole file. This Sinestro right here would be an awesome PNG file. So there's that. But awesome issue. I don't know. I know it sounds stupid because he's a villain, kind of. Uh, I don't know if I buy Sinestro failing. You know what I mean? Being imprisoned like that. It's almost like the way Sinestro's been going as far as popularity and going from yellow to green and back to yellow and now in this issue a Black Lantern. It's almost like he's more anti-hero. He's kind of like Venom. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's kind of hard to put him all the way in one category or another. And I don't want to say he's too big to fail, but I can't think of anything else. I kind of
Yeah, I think it was a little. And there was a hard sell on this issue to believe. It probably was the idea that even though I know that we're supposed to believe the apexers over here are supposed to be real badasses, but it's still kind of difficult to think that they could take him down and the Sinestro Corps down.
Yeah.
And, enough that they could present enough of an obstacle where the entire Sinestro Corps, including Ranks, they mentioned the point that Ranks is there.
Yeah.
that they could take down all these guys and screw them up enough where basically Parallax is pulled out of the core of the planet. And to me, that was one of the more interesting things in the book too, the idea of they make it clear what would happen if Parallax left. They necessarily make it clear why he put Parallax there.
Yeah.
To me. So I think that's kind of intriguing. Sora being a yellow, which of course one could just say that at some point that she becomes loyal enough to her father where she would openly, embrace the yellow more than the green. So that could be the simple explanation there. Poor Arkillo once again, getting screwed over while fighting loyally for Sinestro. I can't get your break. The Rodney Dangerfield of the Sinestro Corps. No, I liked it. It was good. It probably was my second favorite.
Mine too. Red. It goes. Red. Red Lantern, Sinestro. New Guardians, Green Lantern, and then I think New Guardians and Green Lantern can be kind of interchangeable, depending on my mood. And then Core definitely last.
I would probably rank them the same. I actually might put Green Lantern ahead of New Guardians. There was enough it surprised me that there was actually enough in this issue of Green Lantern that I liked to say that maybe that was better than New Guardians, especially since both were bummers, but at least, if you will, Hal at least went out like a hero, and Kyle was borderline. Kyle kind of went out as borderline a hero, but it's more like Kyle went out like Parallax in Final Night. Like he's going out doing the right thing, but actually you can make a case Parallax in Final Night was a little more heroic because at that point he really wasn't doing anything wrong. He just was purely stepping into the fray knowing he was going to die, literally, since he could see the future. While Kyle was just up to the very point that he may have been searching for a while to find the one person that he could pass the ring on to, but in the meantime, it didn't stop him from kind of doing questionable things.
Yeah.
But they were, as a whole, it was entertaining. Especially since we know we can enjoy them as simple one-shots because none of this stuff's ever going to come to fruition.
Yeah.
They may, like I said, they may take bits and pieces of it, some aspects of it, like you look at the Krona thing as a Black Lantern. I would be actually surprised now if somebody doesn't do that. Even if Vendetti doesn't do it, even if he's not on the book, which I would almost bet the farm he's not going to be on the book for 5 years. But if he was, I mean, if they could decide, somebody I think will do the. They may very well do the, or have two factions of Black Lanterns almost, because Krona might be capable of figuring out a way to get Black Lanterns on his own without needing Black Hand's ring, but Black Hand's ring will make it even better for him. So he kind of like goes after Black Hand's ring so it's almost like a dueling Black Lantern faction. But I think there'll be some elements of this that we'll see. God, I hope the Shadow Empire being still a factor in 5 years certainly better not be one of them.
Yeah. Did you have anything else to say about Sinestro? I mean, I don't. As far as nitpicking it or finding one thing or another to go through or dissect, I don't have anything. I just overall enjoyed it. But did you have anything specific you wanted to say about it before we moved into some feedback?
I don't. I'm just trying to think if there was anything that we missed. I think no. I think we did. I think we did justice to Sinestro. It was the concept itself was interesting. It's just again, I agree that the idea of Sinestro being beaten, maybe so imprisoned so easily.
Yeah, it doesn't really make much sense. We only have one bit of feedback as far as of Future's End. Basically, I posted on Twitter. I said, what did you think of these issues? And Jesse says, I really didn't like any of the Future's End books. GL and Sinestro, okay. GLC and Red Lanterns, meh. And for the first time since New Creative Team's New Guardians was the worst, in my opinion. Best part of any of them was the return of Black Lanterns and GL and Sinestro. In Red Lanterns, Blue Guy was completely out of character. Not a good month for Lantern books. I don't know if I necessarily agree with all of that, obviously based on our reviews, but it's interesting to hear the other viewpoint.
I think based on the original solicits, you would think it was pretty easy to go in and to thinking anyway, that Blue Lantern Guy would be a complete mismatch. That wouldn't make a lot of sense. But I think it does work based on the context of of the book and the way it played out. I think it does work.
Right. Yeah, I really liked it. Blue Lantern Guy was able to kind of keep his personality, if you will. So that was pretty cool. A lot of fun.
And he was a pretty damn effective Blue Lantern. So
right. We got a few emails to go through. Did you want to take the first one there?
Brian's?
Actually, hold on one second. I think there's Andy. I don't think we've. Normally, after we've read them, I move them into another folder.
Oh yeah, we do have to kind of discuss that because sometimes I don't. What folder are they in?
Let me see. Let me just go back to primary here.
Especially since the other ones in the inbox weren't moved, so I would never really checked.
Right. So down here between Andy and me, September 5th. If you
okay.
Yeah, if you want to read his original email, and I will just read my response.
Okay, the plea for feedback one.
Yes.
Okie doke. Like, hi guys, I'm responding again to the plea for feedback. I think that the show is doing great. I like that the episodes are dropping weekly. I love your commentary on the comics, principally because you underline my own thoughts and opinions. I like that you are caught up. In fact, so much so that when I listened to the episode when you covered Sinestro 4 and 5, it made me sad because my LCS has let me down and I don't have those issues yet. Something that occurred to me and that you might like to discuss is that Jon Stewart can't catch a break. He is responsible partly for the death of 2 planets, which we were reminded of once again, I must point out as my own commentary to his email. He was hunted for the longest time by one crazed Star Sapphire. His first wife was killed by another crazed Star Sapphire. He spent part of the 1990s in a wheelchair for what turned out to be a psychosomatic illness. He just needed to pull himself together. He was just sentenced to death for killing a fellow Green Lantern, and now his girlfriend was a Durlan. The worst of it all. How much more can the writers throw at him? Keep up the good work, you guys. I think we know the answer to that.
Yeah, and I responded. I said earlier in this episode when we covered Green Lantern Corps, my thoughts on Jon Stewart I'd get to later. This is what I meant. My response to Andy here. I said, as always, thanks for your feedback. We truly appreciate it, and I mean that sincerely. But as far as Jon Stewart, you raise an interesting point. While we'll surely discuss it next time we record, I'm wondering if the issue with Jon is that his character, outside of the Green Lantern Green Arrow series and the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited animated series, has never been fully developed and explored. Usually, such mind-bogglingly horrific life events are a way to push the character through tough times and bring him out stronger in the end, so that you can empathize with the character, and the writer, now starting from a place of endearment, can build the character up for you. Maybe nothing really ever stuck, So we just got stuck in an endless loop of trials for John with no real development on the other side of his personal low point. Just an idea. That's still something. I mean, even though I only wrote this a few days ago, I still agree with that. I mean, I kind of feel like nobody since John was created and since the animated series has any idea of what or who John Stewart is. So they keep pushing him through these things to as a way for you to go through hell with him and identify with him and come out the other side. But then the next creator has no idea who John Stewart is and does the same thing, and we just get stuck in this endless cycle of extreme life events to put John Stewart through this so that we can better understand him, but we never fully understand him.
That's a good point. I think John, uh, John Stewart's not my favorite Green Lantern, and maybe that's part of the reason why is that they never. To me, he doesn't seem that developed. It does seem like they tend to go to the well fairly often with him. Let's give him some crappy life situation. Let's have him kill this. Let's have him kill that. Let's have him. Let's take something else away from him. And so I guess if you look at it from that point of view, since up to this point he's kind of like the little engine that every time something screws him over, he just keeps going forward. That I guess you can make a case it's an interesting take on almost like an Emerald Twilight-ish take on John that we got in Future's End, where you kind of just kept pushing him to the point, and the whole fatality thing at the end of the day was the one that kind of put enough of a crack, enough of a fissure in the foundation that eventually that led him to where he was. I don't know. I don't think they used John Stewart well, and I kind of think that, to me, that might be part of the problem I have with Core too. That one of the reasons why that book doesn't have as much of an appeal to me as the other three at this point.
Right. We also got an email from Dow. Do you want me to read that one? He doesn't really ask us any questions. It's just more commentary.
Okay, you do that one, and I'll do Brian's.
Okay, episode 182, Red Lanterns 25 through 27. He says, Red Lanterns 25. I'd almost say that this issue was a really good jumping on point for the series. I'm chalking up Rancor's disguising powers as part of the fact that the Reds are more than just own emotional spectrum technology and are also packing blood magic, which we've kind of mentioned before now. But thanks. Good that you're picking up on that, too. Red Lanterns 26 says, the stuff they said while high, and so begins or returns the Bleed's Rancor shipping. Speaking of high, and the fact that Rage Kitty basically told Atrocitus what we're all thinking during Milligan's run, this reminds me of a Robbins Williams bit. California Catatotic. This is the kind of weed where your cat will go, get up, you asshole. I've been sitting in my own crap for days. I know mellow, but this is ridiculous. Red Lanterns 27. Was it just me, or was Rancor just super British in this issue? Guy looks a lot like the Marvel character Corsair. He's Cyclops' dad and leader of the Starjammers, for those who don't know. Corsair actually does get compared to a 70s porn star a lot, so your guys' comments probably fit. I don't know what our comments were there.
Maybe because of the mustache, maybe.
Yeah. I was surprised Zox and Skalax did run into Shadow Thief while in Israel, since she's tied to Israeli special forces now. Although maybe they got her attention over Israel and she shadowed them, no pun intended, to assess their threat level. While I'm on the subject, I'm a history major, so I feel like I have to point out that Guy actually should have sent them to the Red Sea.
Reed Sea.
It's a mistranslation that led to everyone thinking the Israelites crossed the Red Sea on their way out of Egypt, even in official as they can be anyway, translations of the Old Testament, but it was actually the Reed Sea they crossed, not the Red Sea. Did not know that.
Did not know that either.
All right, so and then we got one today from Brian.
From Brian.
From Brian.
Good timing, Brian. Got it right under the wire. Hi, Chad and Mark. I really enjoyed listening to your review of Emerald Twilight on episode 197. Having just got back into reading comics in 1994, I read Zero Hour before reading Emerald Twilight or Green Lantern number 55, the Zero Hour tie-in, where Alan Scott gives Kyle a summary of Hal's then recent actions. which was a great issue, by the way. So I was shocked when I saw Hal as Parallax for the first time. I did not get to read Emerald Twilight for a number of years. My local shops all raised the prices of issues 48 to 50 into the $20 plus range, making this a story that was out of my price range. The comic stores in Toronto acted as if the speculator market was still in full swing for several years after the speculators went away, so I did not get to read Emerald Twilight until shortly before Hal came back in Rebirth. I like Emerald Twilight, even though I felt very bad about seeing one of my favorite DC characters taking such a fall. For a time I was soured on the story, although this was because I had read about the original Gerard Jones plan, and being a Gerard Jones fan, I felt that it was really disrespectful for what could have been an interesting story to get scuttled so quickly. Looking at the story now, however, I do like it, and I really appreciated the fact that the story did not drag on for a year. In my opinion, making Hal the ultimate big bad in Zero Hour was brilliant. Hal was the one character who did not appear in a single issue of the original Crisis, and seeing him as a villain in the quasi-official follow-up to Crisis was something that most readers probably never dreamed of. The Parallax retcon also works for Zero Hour. Sure, Hal wanted to fix things by creating new worlds, but this would be great for the Parallax entity as well. With a new multiverse, Parallax would have untold billions of life forms to inflict in terror upon. Thanks as always for your excellent coverage of all things Lantern-related, guys. Looking forward to listening to your GL movie commentary. Cheers, Brian.
Awesome. That was a really awesome email.
It was. The one thing that I can't, and it's not because they couldn't have made it work, but I don't necessarily think that it fits, really, is the whole Parallax, the retcon of Parallax and tying it into Zero Hour. The goals for Zero Hour. And we saw how they tried to retcon that in directly when Dan Jurgens did that Brewster Gold issue that had them flying, and basically they came across Parallax and Extant during the midst of Zero Hour.
Mm-hmm.
And having Hal basically say that, about Alan Scott, that he wanted Alan Scott to, not just to see like how he did everything better than him, but he wanted him to feel fear or whatever. And it's like, I don't really see. Yes, they could have made it. They could have made it work, but Hal back the Emerald Twilight through Zero Hour Hal, even until Final Night Hal, all he wanted to do was make everything right. He wanted to recreate the universe. First, it was just Coast City. Then when he fought Guy during Emerald Fallout, that kind of gave him, as he mentioned in Zero Hour, that made Hal realize that he was thinking too small. That was only one problem. It was a major problem, a major wrong that needed to be righted, but there were so many more. That Hal just wanted to create basically a perfect universe where Hal was going to essentially be the guardian of that universe to make things run smooth. I don't think that naturally flows with, we have this new universe, all these different worlds, and then now I can make them, be terrified of me. Now, yes. Now, inside, if Parallax was letting Hal do what he wanted, and he was just kind of like, you're rubbing his hands like, yeah, I'm just waiting for the moment. You could make it work, but based on the way Hal was acting during that time, no, it does not naturally fit.
Well, it does in a way, not necessarily to what Brian was saying as far as making to inflict fear and everything, but remember that line from Rebirth where basically Parallax was trying to keep Hal Jordan happy.
Yes, that is true, but that is part of the retcon.
Yeah,
that was part of the retcon, and yes, you could try to make a case that would work. And yes, I think that was Johns' attempt initially to say, because that's why Coast City was recreated, and the hangar was recreated, and all these different things I think that were recreated in the early parts of Rebirth that Hal was getting blamed for, even though he knew he didn't do. That
Parallax is trying to placate him.
Parallax was doing it to try. It was Parallax's attempt to try to appease Hal, and then Parallax got to the point where he basically said, "Well, I don't care anymore. I don't need to appease you anymore." Yeah, you could try to make it fit, but from a motivational. But again, what you're saying, I agree more with what you're saying. The idea that if it's behind the scenes, Hal not being consciously aware of it, the Jurgens thing, and I like Dan Jurgens a lot, and I like, along with Daryl, I think I like him drawing Parallax probably as well as anybody. But when I read that issue of Booster Gold and they threw that line in, almost like like they felt obliged to try to acknowledge the retcon about what Parallax really was. That just really rubbed me the wrong way, because that's not what Hal was about. Hal was not during Zero Hour himself. There was nothing Hal was doing consciously that was about fear.
Yeah.
That had nothing to do with his motivation, and even anything to do with Alan Scott. I mean, when he finds Alan, that was because the reference to Alan Scott is interesting, because if we ever do Zero Hour, that the big clue, if you will, that Hal was the big bad, if you will, was when he finds Alan Scott's ring. I think, who does Alan Scott? He gives it. Was it to Kyle? Does he give it to Kyle to carry into battle?
Yes.
I thought he did. And then it gets left behind. And then you see the hand pick it up. He makes a comment about basically, this is, a trinket for something that doesn't, a long ago time, or something that no longer exists or is no longer important. And then he just kind of puts it down and he crushes it, which is the homage to him stepping on his own ring in Emerald Twilight.
Right.
So, that's the only part that, I agree. I mean, Brian's email is great, and I agree with almost everything he has to say. But but from just the fear aspect alone, saying it's a perfect fit with the retcon, I don't necessarily.
You respectfully disagree.
I respectfully disagree. Now, there was one other thing I could mention if you want to.
Well, we just to throw it out there, we did do an episode on Zero Hour. If anybody's interested, a long time ago, me, Jim, and Dan, and actually Adam Murdo from Comic Geek Speak, episode 94, I believe. The only reason I remember that is because the Zero Hour event came out in 1994, I believe, and it was episode 94 at the time.
Now that you say that, I think I actually do kind of remember listening to part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked Zero Hour. I thought Zero Hour was it was kind of convoluted in one sense, as far as, and it didn't accomplish what they like all of these crises. They never really accomplish what they're supposed to. But the Hal reveal was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
You don't get that many kind of surprises and relevant. But what I was going to mention, which is not related to this, which was something that Dwayne mentioned when we were recording for issue 200, about why maybe, because we kind of talked about why maybe we were not really sure how they could explain away how all the Reds that Guy defeated, like Trostis, when he no longer had the ring, like why they weren't dead, or things like that. And I think Dwayne, he still might leave a voicemail about it, but he mentioned the idea that maybe when Guy pulled all the rings into him, that maybe somehow he basically changed the nature of the rings. Something about changing that since it was not relying entirely on as much on blood magic anymore. That since he basically, almost like what we saw in the Future's End issues, how by pulling how Bleez was in control of the rings, and then Guy was able to destroy them, and Guy was basically pulled all the rings into himself briefly, that maybe he changed the way they work, which is also maybe why he's able to just wear it around his neck and not have to have it on his finger.
So maybe through Atrocitus they are more blood magic, through Guy they're more scientific.
Yes. Yeah, more
traditional,
more true ON tech. Yeah.
So. Not a bad idea.
That's not a bad idea at all.
Well, guys, we covered 5 issues and did 3 emails. So no Twitter or Facebook this time around. We do have a kind of voicemail to play, but we'll get to that in episode 201, because I was on the road for work all day today and I have not had a chance to listen to that. So we are going to stop right here. Next episode is episode number 200. So strap yourselves in and prepare yourself for that. And then when 201 rolls around, I have no idea what we're covering. We really only planned up to 200.
Yeah, 200 has been taking a lot of our time as far as prepping and trying to get all the pieces we need to be able to put it together. So it's definitely preoccupied us. And then even fitting this episode in, because we knew we had to cover so many issues, that this was kind of a little. That's why we wanted to do it as quickly as soon as it ended, as soon as Futures and the issues all came out for Green Lantern, so we could do that, and then So it's been kind of a little hectic time from a recording point of view. So we have no idea what we're doing for 201 yet, but we'll figure something out. We always do.
That's right. Well, we'll talk to you guys later. Mark, do you want to go ahead and give them the how to contact us?
Sure. You can email us, lanterncast@gmail.com, lanterncast@gmail.com. You can visit our website, lanterncast.com. You can access our forums, check out our galleries, movie reviews, products of the week, Ring Cyclopedia episodes. You can follow us on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook. Use hashtag GLCast to locate us on both. We are on iTunes and Stitcher. So make sure you listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, people. Well, at least one of them. And if you like us on iTunes, please leave us a positive review. Last but not least, if you'd like to leave us a voicemail, call us at 708 Lantern, 708 Lantern, and let us know what you think.
All right, guys. See you at 200.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.